Hello. Are we live? Has this happened? Is this happening? I think it's happening. Okay, I think it's happening, everyone. How is everyone doing? I'm so excited for the first HFC CareCon. I'm sure everyone else is excited as well. If this isn't working, someone send me a message just so I'm sure that it's not working, but I think it's working. I'm so excited for today. As I think all of you know, improving the lives of caregivers is a really big priority for us here at HFC. So we are so thrilled that over 1,300 of you have signed up to join us today on National Caregivers Day for some learning and some laughing and, of course, connection, which is the thing that has perhaps become the most difficult in this past year. In the 15 years that my family cared for my mom, Adele, during her journey with Alzheimer's, I got a front row seat to how truly difficult being a caregiver can be. Caregivers are superheroes. They are selfless, they are hardworking, and they are often completely exhausted. They have dedicated their lives to caring for their loved one, and they often go unthanked and unsupported. That's why when my husband Seth and a few friends and I founded HFC in 2012, we knew we wanted to do whatever we could to help caregivers navigate this journey. We had virtual support groups since before these pandemic days, I should say, because driving across town to a support group just isn't possible sometimes when you're caring for a loved one. We have provided outlets for caregivers to share their stories because sometimes the only way to end the stigma that surrounds Alzheimer's is through talking about it, normalizing it, and making sure no one feels alone. We have forged partnerships with individuals and organizations who prioritize and facilitate teaching and supporting caregivers. We've provided over 300,000 hours of free at-home care for caregivers who are taking care of their loved ones at home, but can't afford the wildly high costs of respite care. And today we've gathered leading experts to provide you with tools and tips, which we hope you will be able to use as you continue your incredibly special and important work as caregivers. But whether you've chosen care path 1 or 2, our main goal today is that while you're learning, you'll also laugh a bit and leave feeling loved and supported by HFC and your fellow caregivers here today. CareCon wouldn't be possible without the support of our wonderful sponsors, our presenting sponsor, Kensington Senior Living, our premier sponsor, Biogen, our panel sponsors, ASI and Home Instead, and our other very generous supporters who made this event possible. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Tiffany Tomaso from Kensington Senior Living, our partner and presenting sponsor.
Thank you, Lauren. My name is Tiffany Tomaso, co-founder of Kensington Senior Living. My team and I are honored to partner with HFC as the presenting sponsor for the inaugural CareCon event. CareCon, an event for caregivers, is close to my heart. I have worked with seniors and their families for over 35 years, but my journey to senior care started in my teens. As a volunteer with my church youth group, I visited seniors in their homes and in nursing homes. And while in college, I lived with my grandparents. Through both experiences, I learned firsthand the important and often difficult roles families take on as caregivers. At Kensington, our promise is to love and care for your family as we do our own. It is the foundation of how we operate and what families can count on when choosing one of our communities. We believe that there is no greater calling than supporting and partnering with families in the care of their loved ones. My team and I have thoroughly enjoyed working with the HFC team, and we look forward to supporting future events. Thank you, Lauren, for your passion and commitment to caregivers around the world.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm just, I'm technically, I'm 50% there. Okay, so we're so excited Thank you, Tiffany and Kensington Senior Living again for being our amazing sponsor today. I'm going to turn the program over to our moderators for our first panels. I'll see you back here after the panel with a special guest and some giveaways. You've, I believe, chosen your care paths. Panel 1 is creating community and taking action. Our moderators, Kimberly Williams-Paisley and Ashley Williams. Our amazing panelists, Ajin Poo, Jason Resendez, Tracy Reyes, and Brian Van Buren. Care Path 2, which is employing levity with Sean Hayes. And our panelists, Dani Klein, Jacquelyn Joyce, Jay Smiles, and Saranne Rothberg. So I will turn it over to the technical gods who will hopefully make this happen for all of you.
Are we up next, Kim?
Am I still on? I have no idea.
I think it might be. If you're 50% of the tech, then Kim and I are the other 50%. Maybe about 25. So eventually it'll add up to 100.
I see our picture. Should we just start talking?
Yeah, let's start. You take it away.
Hi, everybody. All right. I am Kimberly Williams-Paisley. This is my sister, Ashley Williams. We have lived with Alzheimer's with our mother, who passed away in 2016. She had an 11-year journey with.
I definitely just got that one up.
Okay, I am not in. Is anyone in Sean's room?
I'm in. Can you hear me? It's Saranne.
I'm here. This is Sean. I thought it says I am unable to start my own video because the host has stopped it.
I have that too, Sean.
I have that too.
Free, Sean.
Guys, we're doing great.
I can hear you.
Let's
This is
see.
Jay Smiles. I can hear everybody.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start? Because it's just the same.
I just came on. My video just came on.
Oh, yes, I see you,
Maybe
Dani.
that's right.
Oh, and there's Jacquelyn. And then
I'm waiting.
here's me. Okay, great. Oh my gosh, everybody's here.
I'm not in.
Oh, wait,
I'm
no,
in.
wait.
There you are.
All right.
There we
Okay,
go.
great. Hi, everybody.
The gang's all here.
Hey.
Hi. So thanks so much to Lauren, to Tiffany, to everybody at Hilarity for Charity for inviting me and all of us here right now on Zoom, seeing all your gorgeous faces. It's great to be a part of today's CareCon panel. We're going to talk a little bit, right, about how we can infuse levity when dealing with Alzheimer's and what and where are the places we can all find a bit of laughter along the way, right? Because when I was dealing with my own mom's Alzheimer's, after a while, I thought, if I don't start finding humor in this darkness, I'm going to cry myself to death. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Sean Hayes. I'm an actor and producer and mediocre at best at both of those things. Really quick, I moved my mom out to Los Angeles because I thought I could be a superhero and take care of her in a different way than my siblings did, although they did amazing, but it was my turn. So little did I know the magnitude of being a caregiver, and that, sometimes it can take over your life and the guilt that goes with that, as I'm sure you can all relate to, and struggle with all of those emotions and where to put that. So somehow you figure out balance. I don't know how I did it, but one of the things that helped me once you accept the situation in which you've kind of found yourself, I began to slowly infuse comedy and see things how my mom would have seen it, which is, finding the humor. I know that sometimes we can talk to this too. I know that sometimes some people, it sounds insensitive if you haven't gone through it, what we've all gone through on the call, when you talk about comedy and Alzheimer's. And some people think, how dare you, while others completely relate and understand, right? So one of the two super fast stories, and then we'll dive right in. One thing that made me chuckle when my mom, was when my mom would go number 2 on the toilet and she would never flush. And I would go into her room and say, Mom, what's that about? And she'd say adamantly, oh, that's not mine. No, I don't know whose that is. They come in here, they do their business and they leave. It's awful. And I go, I can't imagine, Mom. Did you get a good look at them so we can catch them next time? And she's like, no, I didn't, but I will.
Sean, I think our moms are related.
Yeah, right. And then one other quick thing, that's hilarious. One other thing, my mom always loved to laugh. So I'm so grateful that she loved it. She was one of the funniest people. And also she was a great audience, right? So when it got really, really bad to where my mom couldn't find words, I started doing the laughing game with her. So I would start going, and then she would start going, but not knowing, because she would just imitate me. And then I would go, and she would go, and then it would build and build and build until we were both genuinely laughing so hard. Tears went in our eyes. So it was such a joy for me to see her laughing with me through this disease. It was like a huge exhale to me. So those are just a couple examples of creating levity on your own, and I'd love to go around the room now. And first, when I call on you, introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are and tell us a little bit about yourself. And let's start with J Smiles, because it's in your name, girl.
Okay. I love it.
The joy. So the question first, tell us a little bit about yourself. And then the question is, what came first for you, caregiving or comedy?
Okay. Thank you so much. I love seeing everybody's face again. We've met already. So, hey, this is my COVID virtual hug to everyone. I'm J Smiles. I am a full-time caregiver to my mom, Zeddy, who you see behind me. She's the one with black hair. And I'm also a professional comedian, a podcaster, Parenting Up, Caregiving Adventures with Comedian J Smiles is my podcast that's for caregivers. And I do it with levity, and I tell the stories of caregiving with humor. I'm also an entrepreneur and a philanthropist. What came first? Actually, caregiving did. So
wow.
In 2012, I was living a very intentionally untethered life. I was living between North America, Africa, and Europe, very purposely, not married and childless, as a mechanical engineer, product designer, and a lawyer. Living my best life.
Me too. Yeah.
I think I saw you a few times. Let's not talk about that here. This is about caregiving. So, and literally in the span of 6 months, my father had a massive heart attack, died like that.
Oh,
my mother, who to that point had been extraordinarily healthy, the shock of his death put her into the early onset of Alzheimer's. I was not aware that trauma could cause Alzheimer's to be sped up in that way. So fast forward through a lot of stuff, I ended up throwing away all the things that I told you I was doing on those 3 continents, chucked that out the window. I became a full-time caregiver, and comedy actually saved my sanity. It came in and kept me from losing it because I didn't know what I was doing. And along the way, it has absolutely helped me meet my mom where she is. That for me has been the key to helping her and helping anyone that comes around her stay sane. It is meeting her where she is because she can't help it. And that's what I try to tell anyone who is new to caregiving, or even if they've been a caregiver for a while, but they are frustrated or they're very anxious. And I say, hey, go into their fantasy, right? It's almost like you get to be a kid again.
Yeah.
And as long as they aren't doing anything that's going to harm them physically or kill them or maybe hurt you or burn the house down, let's go for it. If they want to wear a pot on their head, put a pot on your head.
Right.
What's the problem?
That's one of the biggest things I learned too. And anybody chime in, as this is so informal. But I learned that too, J Smiles. Nobody told me, I had to learn on my own to not kind of at the beginning, you'd be like, no, that's not how you do it. And you kind of combat them until you realize, oh, no, you just have to yes and them all along the way. Yeah. For sure.
That was a big deal for me. It was a big deal. My mother was a CPA, and so she had been so structured. To see her all of a sudden not know what the toilet was for was heartbreaking. So I must say it wasn't easy. I do it very quickly now, but it was not easy.
Right. Let's go on to Jacquelyn. Hi. How are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And then my question for you is, what has caregiving taught you about comedy and everything? And what has comedy taught you about caregiving?
So hi, I'm Jacquelyn. I stutter, and I like to just start out by saying that so that everyone isn't like, what's going on? So I started taking care of my mother and my grandmother in 2016. They both started showing signs, and then we later found out that we had a carbon monoxide. We had a carbon monoxide leak that had started it. I ended up caring for my grandmother until she had passed. And right now I take care of my mom. I started a TikTok where I share what
So
taking
great.
care of someone who has it. And we actually just reached 200,000 today. And so I was just
That's
like,
great.
yeah, so I'm
That's
super excited about that. And like people have just been reaching out, telling me their story. And what I've seen is that people feel so lonely. And so I'm really hear that. And so I'm really happy that I'm here to share.
Yeah, we're happy that you're doing that too. And what an incredible thing. I said to you last time I met you, I saw a couple of your YouTube videos and they were so inspiring. And just the one where you first kind of revealed and were so vulnerable about having the thing that clicks in your head, you go, oh, my life is changing now and I have to take care of this loved one. And it's hard to accept it, but you have to. And you have to accept this new role in your life and how difficult that is to adjust your whole life. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what was that moment like?
I'm still going through that moment, in all honesty.
Yeah. It kind of never ends.
Yeah, so like that moment was incredibly scary. Sort of same, like I had purposely, it was like, I'm not having children right now. I was just like living, having fun.
Yeah.
And so when the change of roles is honestly what was the scariest part, because I did not want to identify as someone that takes care. Like that's not who I saw myself as. And so what's gotten me to the point where I'm at now was figuring out what taking care of someone looks like for myself. Like what makes it fun? What makes it cool even? So that's the change, and that change has taken a long time, and I am on it still.
It's a journey in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Saranne, tell us a little bit about you, and what my question for you could be anything you want. But I just like this little question of how we all we can go back and revisit how we use comedy, since that's kind of the theme of today, and maybe share some funny stories or or what you would suggest to other people about how they can infuse comedy?
Sure. Well, first of all, I can't see everybody that's on this call, but I know that it's an enormous amount of people. And I want you to raise your hand, even though I can't see you. And I want to know how many people who are listening are caregivers, but they're also either going through their own physical challenge, acute or chronic, or they're helping another loved one through another challenge, whether that's educational, emotional, psychological. That's where I found myself. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I was diagnosed with cancer, and I had one parent that was blind. I had another parent who was 20 years older and aging. They were divorced and had no communication. And I had a daughter who all her organs were reversed. And I was diagnosed with cancer, aggressive cancer on top of that. So I like to give this visual image of, when you go to that all-you-can-eat $19.99 buffet, but you're only allowed to go with one plate one time. And so you take everything that you can pile on that plate, including the dessert, like the carrot cake, and then you take a rice pudding and you're wobbling back to your table. That's what it felt like to be me in 1999 when I was diagnosed. And so
that's, by the way, that's lunch for me every day, but keep going. Literally.
So that's what it felt like to be me. And I know that there are people who are listening who are in that same circumstance, because it's very rare that it's just one person that you're caring for. And that's what we're kind of hearing echoed from the other people who are speaking. And by the way, my hat's off to all of you. You're badass, each one of you, in everything that you're doing to extend this conversation and improve the quality of life for caregivers. So I'm honored to be, I'm looking at all of you on my screen. I'm honored to be with you all. So for all the people out there who can totally identify with that overwhelm, I don't think I had any choice the minute they diagnosed me on a Friday afternoon, but to do anything other than I did, which was run to the video store. That's how long ago this was. I survived, by the way. So you can surprise.
Guess what?
I beat stage 4 cancer, surprise.
That's badass, by the way. That's badass.
Thank God.
That is badass.
Thank God.
Especially surviving
hands, everybody.
Video store. That's super badass.
So
they didn't even have any kind of good medicine.
so what I want to say is that, God forbid this isn't going to happen, but all our Wi-Fi's went out. And this was the last thing that you heard from me, is that laughter, play, comedy, and a comic perspective, they are my superpowers. And what's so important about this call is that we've all discovered it. And I'm sure that you guys at home have discovered that too in some small way. But what we're going to try to do today is give you some of our strategies that we've discovered, right? And I've been doing this since 1999, just in this concept of Comedy Cures. That's the organization that I started, comedycures.org. And basically, from my chemo chair with a cell phone and a laptop, I threw a chemo comedy party. And I invited the people in my universe to come, and the doctors and the nurses. And I discovered at that chemo comedy party that this was life-changing. It was emotionally changing, physically changing, auditorially changing, emotionally changing, everything you could imagine about the senses changed by disrupting cancer with comedy, laughter, and play. So as I started to do it just for my daughter and myself, I was a single mom with sole custody going through divorce. As I started doing this just with us, I realized that not only was this great for us, but it was quite contagious, and that we could spread it, and we could start with the people that were in my universe in the chemo room, but then it could work for neighbors and neighbors' kids, and it doesn't matter what your challenge is. This is a superpower. So what I saw in terms of caregiving most specifically was that I was dealing with an aging father, quite much older than I am, who was used to being the king of his kingdom, right? He was used to people really doing what he said. And when he became disabled and his functioning started to wane in all areas, the more he lost cognitive or physical power, the more he held on to being that king. And that could be quite difficult to deal with. So what we did, just as an example, and this is how comedy can influence caregiving and caregiving can influence comedy, is that in the rehabilitation center where he was, we had my daughter make a massive front of a castle, like what you would see in a Broadway play. She painted this massive thing to go over his door entry. And the reason why we did that was because the nurses and doctors had, many patients to take care of, but they needed to adjust when they got to his door and realize they had a difficult patient inside, and they could either fight it or they could go with it. And every time they got to the door, it was just kind of like, okay, we know who it is. It's the king. And then when they went in, I had bought him a big crown, like the margarine crown, and he would wear that. And
Really funny.
It was just so absurd that it diffused everything in the situation.
And what would he have done had he known that was happening?
Oh, no, he was in on it. He was
in on it. Okay.
I mean, God bless him. He's passed away, but narcissists love to be celebrated. And I say that lovingly, like, his nickname was Sid Vicious. And it was just like, no, like he was an amazing human being. But what the payoff was, and this is the other trick I want to give you, is that his favorite thing was chocolate. So he always had an extraordinary box of chocolate. And if he liked the way that you helped him, you got to pick from the royal chocolates. And fancy. Again, these are just little tips, and everybody's going to start talking about them. But this is what got me through so many stages of drama in my life.
That's great. I mean, wow, what a story. And how you're so inspiring. Everybody is so inspiring. The cancer and the divorce and the Alzheimer's, wow, incredible. And you're smiling through it all and delivering us a bunch of great advice and great healing thoughts and ideas. And that's fantastic. Fantastic. Good for you. Thank you for that. That's amazing. Dani.
Hey.
Dani Klein.
Everyone. That's a lot of tough acts to follow here, folks.
No, we're all the same.
Yeah, it's awesome to be
Bring
here.
Bring it on home, girl.
All right then. What I thought was, so I'm Dani Klein Modisette, and I started a company called Laughter on Call, and we bring comedians to work one-on-one with people struggling with Alzheimer's. And I started the company for my mother, who I had also, Sean moved her out here to Los Angeles where I live, and I think in the beginning she was an Upper West Side New York lady, and I found a place for her with a big chandelier in the lobby, and I think for a minute she thought she was in a fabulous apartment building, and then quickly realized she was not within a month, and she became withdrawn and wasn't eating, and I felt terribly guilty. And I guess I should have said that I've been a comedian for 20 years. So so in answer to your question, Sean, I was comedy first and then caregiving.
Okay.
So I was at my dentist, and because it's LA, of course, she's like a life coach, and I said, I just wish I could hire a comedian to cheer my mother up. And she said, oh, why don't you do that? You should do that. And I was like, wait,
that's really funny.
And then I went home and I put up on Facebook looking for comedian, interested in gerontology, paid gig, because I wanted somebody to call. And my phone rang immediately, and it was a friend of mine in New York who's a comedian. And she said, wait, I know someone in LA who wants to work with seniors. She's like sitting on park benches. You should call her. So I called this woman, and she came over and she sat down with my mother and did, of course, everything that we now train she knew to do, just from being a comedian and being a generous person. And she got eye level with my mother, and she said, I know, you don't want to talk to me. No, you're probably thinking, who is this schmuck just talking to me and talking to me?
Right.
And my mother heard the word schmuck, and like her face lit up and she started laughing, and I saw them laughing, and I was like, that's it. That's what I want. I want that. So I hired her, and she started working with my mother 8 hours a week, and it completely changed my mother's end of life. I mean, the company grew from there. I started a company from there.
Wow.
But my mother started eating again and joining in the community.
Wow.
And it really like speaks to the power of connection and reaching people through shared laughter. Specifically, that's what Laughter on Call is about, shared laughter. I also wanted to note that, you know, people, as you said, Sean, people always say, well, comedians and Alzheimer's, no, you can't do that. But here's the thing. So my father died of cancer like 22 years ago now. And up until the day before he died, people came and visited him. They read to him from the Post and, you know, brought him snacks. And then when my mother got Alzheimer's, within 6 months, she was down to one friend who would visit, really just one friend.
Yeah.
And so then I started thinking about and witnessing the caregivers and how much courage they had to show up and show up every day and not know every day. So every hour could be something else. And I remembered when you're a comic, people always say, oh, I could never do stand-up. That's the hardest thing. That takes so much courage. And I thought, oh, interesting. I actually think caregiving takes really a tremendous amount of courage. Like that's the courage championship. But it's possible that comedians do have the right temperament, that kind of relentless, kind of I'm going to get the laugh personality, that compulsive nature, need to connect. That they shared with caregivers. Not all comedians, some comedians obviously are edgy. I'm not bringing Bill Burr in, love you, but I'm just not bringing you in to meet with Alzheimer's. So it has to be people with a lot of heart and compassion. But there is a whole universe of comedians that have so much to give, and it's such a specific service and gift to be able to connect in that way.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, now we do training and we do a whole bunch of other things, but the germ of it always was this idea of creating connection to people in isolation, right? Who are isolated and fearful. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, a big issue with the Alzheimer's, right, is the fear. That's it. It's the overwhelming fear of the person who has it and the everybody's in fear, understandably. So apparently Stephen Colbert said, I thought it went further back, you can't laugh and be in fear at the same time. Now, I thought maybe Freud said it, but no, it was Stephen Colbert.
That's interesting.
I think there's something to that.
That's really interesting. Go ahead, honey.
Yeah, okay, cool. So Dani, you freaking nailed it. Well, you nailed a lot, but the comment I want to make is about people being frightened around Alzheimer's sufferers.
Right.
That is why, that is a main thrust of my podcast. I started the podcast during COVID because as a working comedian, I was starving for a connection, that connection you're talking about.
Right.
And as a caregiver, I was getting information from fans, from caregivers and from comedic fans saying, what are you going to do? We're falling apart over here. And so the idea came for the podcast and it received very good feedback. I said, okay, what in the world is going on? But you're so right about how frightened people are. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. So they stop doing anything. So
Well,
I'm just
Yeah.
never coming around. Like, well, how in the world do you think that that's a good idea? Like, we even talk to plants, and that's a part of like the kind of things that I say on the podcast. My goodness, we rub a leaf, talk to the plant, water. We
Right.
have names for plants and pencils and pens in our cars. And then this person who like fed us and clothed us and helped get us through college or give us money for gas, all of a sudden, just because they may not know our name or may call us out of our name once or two times, we stop going because they made us uncomfortable. They're sick.
Right.
And so
Right.
on the podcast, I'm also pushing for us to become more aware as a society about what the disease looks like, you know, so
Right.
then we're not scared of it. I remember when patients who were when people who were going through chemo and radiation, when they lost all their facial hair, and we were like, whoa, it's an alien, it's a Martian, don't touch him. You might get it too.
Right.
And now that's so ridiculous. No one thinks that. You walk right by me, you're like, hey, keep up the good work. You can beat cancers, you know what? And we walk by them with a fist pump. Well, that's because we now have the knowledge. So that's a part of some of the stuff that I talk about in the podcast, but you're so right. And, you know, it's just, unfortunately, it's a lack of awareness.
Well,
But
I
that's
also
what we're
think
doing here with CareCon. So yay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the issue is that people don't know what to do and what to say. Like there are people who and God bless these people, not really. I just want to remember them the way they were. Okay, so ew, but there are also people who, like you just said, want to come, but they don't know what to do and they don't know what to say and they don't want to do the wrong thing. They're afraid it's not going to be perfect. So I actually came up with I have an 8-step tool acronym tools, 8 tools, do these 8 things. And then if these 8 things don't work, then okay, at least you showed up, because that's the problem, is that people will not show up. So I completely agree with you.
Jacquelyn, you wanted to say something? Jacquelyn, yeah.
Yes. The point that you guys were making is spot on. Something that I keep coming into contact with are also my friends that won't see her because they don't know how to then spend time. So like saying all of what you all are saying makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Saranne. And also, I just want to open up the panel to questions if you have any for us. And while we're waiting for those, Saranne wanted to say something.
So I want to touch on 2 things. The first thing is that Comedy Cures and HFC collaborated in December, and I taught a workshop on developing your comic perspective. And it's a workshop that I teach, and I want to invite everyone to come to comedycures.org, go to our website. We're signing up for March, and I'd love to have you. We have patient workshops, we have caregiver workshops. We also have a toll-free laugh line 24 hours a day, which is 1-888-HA-HA-HA-HA. It's totally free. And if you call 1-888-HA-HA-HA-HA and you press 1, you get a professional comedian 24 hours a day giving you a comedy routine. If you press 2, it's an amateur joke. And if you press 3, you can tell us a joke and we'll put it back on too. So this is a really good way to take a caregiver break. You can use it for yourself, or you can do it as an activity with the person that you're caring for. And what's really fun is that it's for all ages. I mean, we've had 4 generations do it. So, and it's interactive. So I just want you to schedule that, like put it into your calendar. It's one of the things that we do when we teach the caregiving workshops, is how to use comedy for yourself to recharge your own battery. And then how, once you refill your own battery, it's like you put your life mask on first. You take a sip of water first, and then you'll have strength to pour water from your pitcher for everyone else. So again, come to comedycures.org. You'll see signups all over. You'll see the laugh line all over. I also want to invite you to a laughter summit that we're doing, which is 5 days long, where you can just get these strategies day after day, get comedy day after day. So I'm gonna just do a quick strategy or two here. And then the rest I'd love to teach you through comedycures.org. And find us on social media at Comedy Cures. We print, we publish all the time. I also want to do a couple research studies. You know, a lot of what, once I did it as a practical application, like I just needed to save my life, right? I just needed to care for people. So when this started, it was all just very, you know, as Dani said, you know, she just needed to do something for her mom, right? Like, and then this whole organization, you know, grew, and now she has programs and official strategies just like we do, right? We're just more general. We don't only focus in Alzheimer's. We're all illness, all ages, all issues, social, emotional, physical, but we do have a big senior population and have a lot of expertise in senior and Alzheimer's and dementia. But the studies are compelling. And I'm gonna just tell you, there's one that is from Clinical Social Work Journal, Laughing Your Way to Peace of Mind, How a Little Humor Helps Caregivers Survive. If you go to Comedy Cures and just find me, just say, I want you to send me the links for these studies. Geriatric nursing, humorous coping strategy for adult child caregivers of individuals with Alzheimer's, which relates to everybody here. Here's a spousal study. And, you know, those are just ones that have to do with Alzheimer's and dementia and caregiving. There are, I mean, I have over 200 studies right here because we work with all the researchers.
Number one.
We work with all the researchers in
That's
mind body therapeutic, humor and healing, and the way that it impacts your stress levels. So just the way you were saying your instincts, Sean, what you were saying to just laugh with your mom, the mind doesn't know if you're faking it. So it's kind of, you fake it till you make it. And what we teach is that developing your comic perspective, developing this in crisis when you're stressed, this ability to use laughter and play and humor and comedy as your superpower is very much like working out at a gym. And we equate it to, you come to our boot camp, right? And you don't start walking on stage tomorrow and going on an open mic at the Improv, if we were allowed to do that, or Laugh Factory or Caroline's. You do a little each day, and it's like a muscle. The more you practice using the strategies that everybody's talking about, the better your strategies are going to come, the more resilient you're going to be, and the faster those strategies are going to kick in when you have one of those days where you're exhausted, you know, somebody that you're caring for has, say, wet the bed, you still have to go to the pharmacy to pick up things, you might have children, you're late to get them at school. Like, that's when this comic perspective, because you've practiced calling the laugh line, you've practiced telling someone a joke, you've decided that you're going to use funny props like,
I got one of those.
You got, see, they're just happy, they're funny. So anyway, I just want to pass it over, but there are so many strategies that we can all teach you through the podcast, through Laughter on Call, through TikTok, through all the things that we're doing. And it doesn't stop here today on this call.
I love that. Thank you. Gosh, you're like a a one-stop shop for all things.
Thank you.
It's great. It's great. There's been a couple questions or comments about cannabis. Has anybody experimented with that and their caregiving, and what were the results? And we only have 6 minutes left. So I want to do that. And I also want to just end on, after that, if we can go quickly, to just a really funny story that y'all have about caregiving, just to share with everybody. So we can end on a happy note.
I have one on each.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I have one on the oil. So my mother has some pretty chronic lower arthritis. And so I used it there. And because she has advanced Alzheimer's, I can't ask, hey, did it feel a lot better? I know it appeared for about a week that she slept better. How scientifically can you tell? What I do know is she wasn't walking into walls, right? So there was definitely no negative impact. She's not driving a car. So, right, I'm not worried about her being arrested or anything. So for my limited use of it with my mom, it did not hurt anything. If anything, it was a benefit.
That's great. Anybody else?
Yes. So I'm going to be very candid and say that I am from CA, and so weed is it's So one thing that I actually found out while caring for my mom is that she's a pro smoker. Like she can do like goals and so on. And so having her experience that side of my life, she's actually taught me some things. Gosh, I am stuttering like crazy today. I am emotional. It is a
It's no worries. It's no worries. It's all
like,
it's all love. It's all love and patience.
It's National Caregiver Day. So we just
Yeah. It's a lot. It's intense. It's good though that we're all talking about it. Really, we have 3 minutes left. Anybody want to tell just a really funny story?
I have a super funny story I'd love to tell because it's about appreciating the moments. You know, when I brought her out, I had a friend come over to visit with her. One friend would do it, right? But she's like a real career woman. And so she talked to my mother a little bit and then she got on her phone and she's on her phone. And my mother looked at me and looked at her and then looked at me and said, she doesn't want to be here. She's done with me. And I thought, well, that is the candor of when they get to that place where they're like, you know what? That is how you feel when someone picks up the phone while you're talking to them. You feel like, look, they're done with me. And so being able to appreciate, where they are instead of not regretting who they aren't anymore, but to actually be with who they are. And that was a real gift for me in the process. So that's
great. That is so true. That's so true. And Saranne,
I have a super fun thing and it's brand new today. It's new and shiny. We just created a global online experience where you can go with the person you're caring for or alone, and you can record your laugh, and it becomes part of a global laughter project that we created with the Laughing Cow. We designed this for the 100th anniversary of Laughing Cow. And the whole idea is choose to laugh. And when you're caregiving or you're trying to beat cancer or you're just parenting, you have a choice at any minute. And that choice is you can laugh or you can freak out. And freaking out is great sometimes and crying is great sometimes, because when you do that, you can get to the joy. But what we're doing is we're asking the world to come to, and there's a website, but it's just easier. Go to comedycures.org and look for the red cow, and you will enter a world of people laughing from 30 countries. Record your laugh, and then we're going to send it to you as a digital stamp souvenir, and then you can post that on Facebook. You can send it to family and friends. And I wish that I had been able to do this with my father, and I had a recording of his laugh today. So go to comedycures.org, record your laugh, become part of this laughter.
It's like a commercial for Comedy Cares today. Everybody go to Comedy Cares. Everybody go to Laughter on Call. Everybody listen to Jay Smiles podcast. Everybody support Jacquelyn and everything she does. You guys have been amazing. We have we're done. I love you guys. It's been such an honor.
Thank you, Sean.
30 seconds.
Yes, bye you guys.
Thank you, Sean.
Of course.
Watch Jay's TikToks. Watch Jay's TikToks.
Yes.
She's amazing.
Yes.
Listen to the podcast.
For a funny story.
I think we're done.
Are we
I'm
done?
told we're done.
I think everyone's out.
Can we hear your story?
Yeah, I guess we can hear your story. So why not?
Let's see. So they kick me
We
out.
can be done or
My
nothing.
mom, even with her Alzheimer's, she doesn't remember any freaking thing except that she's always working in her mind. She is so good and so convincing because she was a forensic accountant that she convinced her caregiver to take her to court. So they were driving all around the city looking for the courthouse. I fired the lady as soon as I got home.
That is hilarious. By the way, we do have the same mom.
So fun.
That is hilarious.
So fun. So Sean, I've been doing this for 22 years. I've done it for over a million
got that.
people
I got
on
all the
4
notes.
continents.
I am a sir.
I
am a sir.
I'm not trying to make a commercial. It's just I have such an abundance
I was just
of
teasing.
programming.
I was totally teasing. I know it's, by the way, it's all great. It's all amazing and needs to be known. And thank God you did this. And thank God you're still doing it. It's helping so many people. So
No,
that was just
I
me
don't
teasing.
mean to brag. It's just like I'm trying to let people know what resources exist.
Yes,
and
for
how
sure.
Literally, they can have support so quickly. Dani. Are you there?
You were muted, Sarah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah. It said no more accepting your awards. It's over.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize all that you do every day to take care of your loved one. On this National Caregivers Day, we want you to know that you're not alone, that we celebrate you, and we're so glad you could take some time for yourself today and join us.
Hi, everyone, and happy National Caregivers Day to the caretakers out there. Thank you, thank you, thank you today and every day. And I so hope you take a moment to celebrate yourself, to love on yourself, to give yourself some self-care and care for yourself. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mwah.
We're at the Hilarity for Charity County Fair. It is a fundraiser to raise money to raise awareness for Alzheimer's and fight Alzheimer's. We're basically having a big party where comedians will be operating carnival games, basketball, bumper cars. It's exciting. I'm excited.
When my mom, Adele, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease when she was only 55 years old, I spent some time just feeling really sad. And, we do this as a way for people to come together and to sort of laugh in the face of a really sad disease and to, of course, raise money.
My mom has been suffering from Alzheimer's for the last 15 years or so, and I'll do anything I can to raise awareness and raise funding.
Science tells us there's so much we can do to keep our brains healthy these days. So we have a puppy kissing booth that is for emotional well-being. We have some VR brain health games for mental fitness. We have the basketball rope game, whichever one for physical exercise. The meditation is on the Ferris wheel. I'm really excited that people can come have fun, but also maybe learn a bit about keeping their brains healthy.
I mean, it's so different than anything I've ever done before in terms of a fundraiser. I just think it makes it so fun. It makes it so accessible.
The proceeds go to research and they go to funding in-home care for people who can't afford it.
Alzheimer's doesn't have to be a sad, heavy thing when you're fighting against it. You can come to a carnival and have fun, but also do something for Alzheimer's.
Hey everybody, this is Andrew Reynolds. Happy National Caregivers Day. You all are doing incredible work and we're all very, very grateful. And I'm happy to know that you are taking a little bit of time for yourselves today to celebrate all the amazing work that you do.
Hello, caregivers.
What the hell?
It's Braden Bishop here from the Seattle Mariners. I just wanted to welcome you in, say thank you for everything you do. I know firsthand how difficult it is to be a caregiver. My mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2014. So we feel what you're going through, and I say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Hello, friends. The Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers is delighted to wish you all well on National Caregivers Day. We are so proud to be a part of HFC's CareCon as we celebrate and recognize your tremendous contributions, especially during this pandemic. We asked Mrs. Carter what she wanted to share with you this week, and here's what she said.
It's a great pleasure for me to join you in celebrating the more than 53 million unpaid caregivers in our country who are juggling work and other family responsibilities and putting their own physical and mental health and well-being at risk. Caregiving is hard, even on the good days.
Hi, I'm Seth Broken. My wife Lauren and I have experienced firsthand the devastating effect that Alzheimer's and other dementias can have on families. Although there's no cure for Alzheimer's, there are lifestyle changes we can make that build Alzheimer's-resistant brains and mitigate its onset.
Alzheimer's disease begins in the brain over 20 to 30 years before the first symptom of memory loss begins. And that gives us ample time to make brain healthy choices.
In fact, 1 in 3 cases of dementia may be prevented by living what we call a brain healthy life and following 5 key brain health habits. A lot of people don't realize that they can actually take care of their brains. We know things like exercise are good for the heart and lungs, but the missing piece is that they actually also impact your cognitive ability. At HFC, we are committed to Alzheimer's prevention, care, and education. And we have the tools to make a difference with cutting-edge technology and world-renowned scientific partners. HFC Science Advisory Board boasts leading brain health experts in the fields of neuroscience, nutrition, cognitive sciences, and more. We've also developed coursework to teach students at all levels the key ways to keep our brains in shape. In fact, we even conducted a study that landed us in the American Academy of Neurology, which is a pretty big deal. We also know that an important way to keep our brains healthy is by having fun, which is why we host exciting one-of-a-kind fundraisers to raise awareness and drive donations throughout the year. As much as we've accomplished, this is only the beginning, and there's still so much more work to be done. Your donation today will help us teach future generations about living brain-healthy lives and change the trajectory of Alzheimer's disease for good.
I think we're back. Hi, everyone. I'm getting the hang of this Zoom thing. Look, I have a special guest with me. It's my wonderful husband, Seth. I am hoping that everyone enjoyed their first panels. I feel like I'm speaking to a room in which everyone could applaud, but that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, let's hear it for the first panels.
We are so excited to talk to you about brain health. It's something that is a huge part of the work we do here at HFC. We want everyone to learn about the very easy to do things that you can do to take care of your brain. We lead a brain healthy life.
We try to.
Most of the time.
Yeah, I think it was a surprising revelation that you even could take care of your brain. For me, I didn't know that was a thing. I knew you could take care of your heart and your lungs and things like that, but no one had ever taught me how to take care of my brain. So when we learned that, we thought, oh, that would probably be good to take care of your brain. So there are 5 main things you can do to take care of your brain, and we will tell them to you right now. They are getting a good night's sleep. They are getting exercise. They are being nutritious. They are exercising your mental fitness and overall emotional well-being, lack of stress, things like that.
Obviously, being a caregiver, your time is pulled in all sorts of directions, and you may not have the time to incorporate all of these things into your life. So one that, it may not be the most fun thing to do, but nutritionally speaking, one of the things that you can do to really care for your brain is limit the amount of sugar. So you can look to different things like berries to give you a sweet treat, which can help your brain. Instead of chocolate, try dark chocolate.
The less fun version of chocolate.
But there are so many other things.
It's better than no chocolate, probably.
And we share brain healthy recipes on our social media and our emails. And
there's actually some very good ones. There's these blueberry brownie muffins, cupcakes.
She calls them cupcakes. They're muffins.
But they are delicious, I have to say, and incredibly healthy. Yeah.
And so, it is little things. If you do one little thing every few months and add it to your routine, then perhaps you can start taking care of your brain. We actually have a little gift for everyone, for the first 50 people that complete the post-event survey that you will get after this. You're going to get, we have a little care package with some brain health items. We're going to Vanna wipe this for you. So you want to do the survey.
Do the survey, and 50 of you will get, here's a water bottle.
A little tote from Headspace. Who doesn't love a tote?
Another tote.
Oh, we're a little blurry.
Oh, we are a little blurry. No, it's not.
Oh, it's not working.
Unblur.
All right, I'm going to unblur for the package so it's not. Hang on.
Unblur.
There we
go.
All right.
We have this.
That's a lovely tote by Kensington, our presenting sponsor.
Ooh, a visor from Kensington.
Do you want to put that on and model it?
I do like a visor, to be totally honest.
There's a journal to record your thoughts. Look, journaling is so good for your emotional well-being. Just write the word fuck over and over again if you want. That's fine. It'll help.
Lauren does that. We have something from Alaska.
This is the sleep. I wear the sleep mask every
Lauren
night.
does wear the sleep mask.
It has honestly, it really actually helped improve my sleep. Light, even though you think at night it's dark, your room is dark, put a sleep mask on. Truly, it helps my sleep quality.
You can make your own kombucha.
Kombucha is good.
Kombucha is healthy for you.
This is the Alzheimer's Prevention and Treatment Diet. This is written by Dr. Richard Isaacson, who is an amazing doctor and researcher whose work we support, and we collaborate him on brain health research.
You get a Rivet Revolution bracelet. They're a partner of ours that has been very great. You get whatever's in this. This is very heavy.
I don't know what's in there. This is something for thieves. This is for thieves. Oh, it's a botanic. It's a spray. It's a room spray.
You get some sparkling herbal tonic.
We had this at one of our brain health dinners. It was delicious.
It was very good.
This is a spray that will help de-stress you. There's lots of good stuff. Oh, you're going to get Dr. Sanjay Gupta's new book, which is called, Keep Sharp, Build a Better Brain at Any Age. Lots of good stuff in here, guys.
A coupon for light-saving glasses.
Oh yeah,
Or
Felix Ray glasses.
Blue light blocking
Blue light-
glasses.
Anyway.
A whole mess of things. 50 of you will get it. So
Sign, fill out the survey as soon as you get it. It's a contest.
Exactly.
And good luck to those of you.
But we're also going to select some names at random, and those people will
that's
just
right.
be the winners right now. Lauren, I'll allow you to do this.
Seth made this bowl
I did make that bowl. So
because as part of our mental fitness, we started doing pottery to learn a new activity.
there you go.
So there's
Elliot Gesnier.
mhm.
You win a brain health packet.
Hope Schwalls,
Hope Schwalls, you win a brain health packet. Oh, we're doing a
And-
third.
a third.
Jacquelyn Macaulay.
Come on down, but
Come on down.
you can't go
but,
anywhere. You're at your
maybe
house. You're
run
not going
around,
anywhere.
run around your living room a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's a little.
All right.
All right. We always try to drive the computer at the same time.
Exactly.
Okay. This is amazing. We're going to go into our second panels of the day. There's panel number 2, which is finding support, which is moderated by Lisa Gibbons. Our panelists are Rita Gatuk, Kelly McCormick, Rachel Norris, Carlos Olivis, Dr. Jennifer Olson, and Monique Wilson. And then Care Path 2.
This panel will be keeping your brain in shape is the topic. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, the chief medical correspondent for CNN, will be moderating the panel. You have Alexandra Drane, Annie Fenn.
Who made the blueberry muffin / cupcakes if you're Seth.
It was a good thing. Whatever it is, eat it. Pamela Price, Drew Ramsey, and Ayesha Sherzai, and Dean Sherzai.
Dr. Sherzai.
Yes.
So again, the tech gods, I think, will whisk you into the rooms you're supposed to be in. And then I will be here at the end to thank you again.
Yes.
Have fun.
We did it.
And that's our cue to get going. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, HFC, for your leadership, for your example, your energy, for all the great work that you're doing for Alzheimer's and caregiving. And congrats on the very first CareCon. I'm Lisa Gibbons. I'm the daughter of a mom and a grandma.
Am I supposed to be talking? I don't know if there's 2 care paths going on, and I think we're alive with our care path as well. We heard Lisa, which I wanted to actually hear what she had to say, but hopefully for those of you who are joining us, you're ready to have a good discussion about some of the things that Seth and Lauren were just talking about, ways that you can keep your brain sharp. And I'll just start off by saying something that I've learned, and I've had a chance to. I know some of our panelists, I've read about all of our panelists, but something Seth just said during his remarks, this idea that he didn't even know you could do anything to sort of to help take care of your brain. I think this idea that the brain is sort of this black box and, it's measured by its inputs and its outputs. You can't see it. It's encased in this hard skull of bone. And therefore you really couldn't change it or improve it, or, you got what you got and that was it. You drained the cache of neurons as you got older. And, we've learned a lot over the last couple of decades about what the brain is capable of doing, not just when the brain is still developing, when you're a baby, not just after an injury, but everyone's brain at any age. So I think that it's a fascinating sort of, and I think very inspiring, focus of learning that we've had around the brain over the last couple of decades. And I thought maybe that would be a good place to start. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us, panel. It is a really tremendous panel. But doctors Sherzai, maybe I'll start with you. First of all, just tell me about your field of specialty, how you got interested in Alzheimer's.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It's so wonderful to be here with the
Thank you.
esteemed panel and being connected to these wonderful caregivers. Really excited to be here. I guess our story started about 17 years ago, about 8,000 miles away from here, back in Afghanistan, when we were working in the community. Dean was there working for, he was in NIH, and he was invited by the Health and Human Services and the World Bank to go there and build the community on and work on health policy. And I was there. I used to work with Doctors Without Borders, and I was working at a refugee camp, and we met at a party. And the first conversation we had was about our grandparents who were just devastated by this horrible disease, Alzheimer's, and how these incredible men, both of them highly educated, they were they were our heroes, and how we both saw them lose parts of themselves to this horrible disease. And that left a mark, and that essentially just set our trajectory to learn more about brain health, about Alzheimer's. We went into this field to find a treatment for it. And so we trained in, one of the best places. We went to UCSD back then. Dr. Leon Thal was doing some really critical work on Alzheimer's disease. We worked on neuroimaging, on molecular research, but we quickly realized that there needs to be more. And so we ended up working in the community in public health. Back then, our mentor, Dr. Elizabeth Barrett Connor, was doing some really fantastic work on prevention of cardiovascular disease in the community. And we found out that there is a lot that can be done for brain health as well. So we both went to Loma Linda University, which is a blue zone, and Dean established the Memory and Aging Center there. And I did the first one of its kind. And I think you and I coined the term preventive neurology. So that was our specialty. And I did a dual residency in preventive medicine and neurology. I went to Columbia University, did a fellowship in vascular neurology, understanding the importance of lifestyle on brain health in general. And now we're conducting research and working in the community. Our research, one of the largest one in the community, is at Beach Cities, which is in Manhattan, Redondo, and Hermosa Beach in Southern California. And we're looking at the application of lifestyle in the community and seeing its effect. So
the importance of lifestyle has been known for all other systems. And for some reason, we think that this black box, the brain, 3 pounds, 2%, 25% of body's energy, is a separate entity that came from space into this little vault, and it's different. It's not. It's all the other systems maximized to its nth power. The amount of energy, the amount of stress, the amount of production and elimination of products, and it's all magnified when it comes to the brain. And the same things that we've applied to prevention is exponential on the brain. And we've known this, and you've known this, Dr. Gupta and all this amazing panel. The key is to translate it into the communities now. And that's what we're doing in the communities, in the faith-based movement that we've started, and the beach cities and the community side, of how to empower individuals, how to take policy, which I love the concept of policy that was the beginning of my work, how to take policy and implement it to the person. And that's what we need to do to stave off this most devastating, the most expensive, and in the next 20 years, probably the most debilitating disease to our entire system.
What a story you two have had. I mean, I actually knew your story somewhat, but that's incredible. I feel like I have so many questions. I love the fact that you met at a party and that it started you on this journey. But you,
Dr. Gupta, she sat next to me. In the
right? I like how you threw that in there.
Tell you the entire true version some other time.
Okay, well, you can write a book about it, right? Dr. Drew, what a pleasure, Dr. Ramsey. Just building on the same sort of stuff that you're hearing from Dr. Sherzai. What is it about brain health that you think the average person should know? And I mean, I think oftentimes we think of health and you think of working out and getting muscles and improving now, but the idea that you could improve your brain now and help ward off disease as well later. I mean, sometimes we think of these as two different things, but what have you learned?
Well, thank you, Sanjay, and hi to everyone. I'm really just honored to be on the panel with so many of you, especially as a psychiatrist. We've known for a long time, we've had a horrible mental health epidemic in this country, and increasingly we now understand mental health means brain health. And so what I've really been focused on in my work is how do we incorporate nutrition into mental health? How do we make some of the changes that Dr. Sherzai are talking about and that Dr. Annie Fenn's going to tell you about? And how can we utilize that in mental health? It's really surprising when you're a psychiatrist like me, there's really no education around nutrition, which is surprising. As Dr. Sherzai said, the brain burns more fuel than any other organ. We now know that the risk of depression is highly correlated with what you eat And we know that your risk of depression can up to double your risk of Alzheimer's disease or dementia. And so my hope is really that, and I guess what I've learned to your question, Dr. Gupta, is how much we can do and how much more we need to do to empower our patients, that we need to move away, I think, from fear-based messaging. And what my work has really been about is putting joyfulness back in nourishment, that food is one of the oldest pleasures that humans know, one of our most primal pleasures. And when we can really focus on the brain foods, those foods that have the nutrients we know can ward off depression, that can likely ward off dementia, that certainly play a role in regulating inflammation, when we can feed the microbiome, when we can incorporate that into mental health and brain health treatments, I think we're winning the fight. And I think it's been a really big missing piece, that as we focused on the epidemic of obesity and diabetes and diabesity, as we call it, and cancer, all really important diseases, we've got to make that connection. What you eat influences your level of depression, anxiety, your stress response, and your risk of dementia. And I guess what I've learned is that people are excited about this. I think Seth Rogen's been in the dark a little bit. I think a lot of us have heard that message that you can do things to impact your brain health. And so that what I've learned is there's just a wave of enthusiasm that's happening in the country about food and about mental health. And it has me really, really excited.
You know, we're going to dive into some specifics, because I think there's a lot of people who are listening that, you know, they want to know, what does this tangibly mean for them in terms of how they live their lives. But I'm curious, Dr. Drew, you know, it's interesting. And I should call you Dr. Ramsey. I don't know why I'm calling you Dr. Drew.
You can call me Dr. Drew. He made his name before I did. I'm just hoping to walk into those shoes.
Okay. Well, be careful what you wish for. You have a healthy heart, and you could say, okay, it has a certain ejection fraction, or it doesn't have plaques in the blood vessels that lead to the heart. How do you define a healthy brain?
I define a healthy brain when it's sitting in front of me, as it's operating, as we say in medicine, at the top of its license. The best functioning of a human brain is when it's connecting us up to our own passions, our own goals and dreams, when it connects us up to those in our community and our loved ones. You see healthy brains are smiling, are connecting, are optimistic, are creative. Those are the signs of mental health. And what I like about that definition, and maybe that's the most traditional, is it allows us to have some symptoms. It allows us to struggle with the pandemic and to be really sad and to grieve in a normal way. It allows us to be anxious about our health and to not pathologize all of those symptoms as things we've got to get rid of, but oftentimes as things that we can work through or understand. And so I think it's really, it's our hope that increasingly we think about mental health as something, not that 20% of us have mental illness. I'm done with that statistic, Sanjay. I want to think about that 100% of us have this gift, this miracle in the universe, a human brain, and we all should know how to feed it. We should all know how to care for it. And in doing that, I think that we do a lot to stave off dementia, depression, anxiety, and we get to operate at the top of our license and really enjoy being humans.
I think that's really, really good. You know, there's this, one of my favorite books I've ever read is a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. It's by Robert Sapolsky. He's an evolutionary biologist. And I was talking to him because I was so fascinated by the book. The title sort of gives it away in terms of what the book's about. But I asked him about a healthy brain, Dr. Ramsey, and he said an interesting thing. He said, a healthy brain is a brain that has a wider circle of us, is how he sort of defined it. The more people that you sort of include in the circle of us, and I guess that's empathy, it's connection, it's a lot of the things that you're talking about that would widen that circle of us. So we'll come back to that in a little bit, but Dr. Pamela Price, I apologize, I don't have the monitor, so I'm assuming you're there.
She's here.
Okay.
I'm here.
You know, I thank you for being here. I was excited to speak to you and hear from you. And, you know, one of the things that we think about a lot with brain health is the idea that it does require a multidisciplinary approach. You know, you talk about nourishing your body, you talk about the right kind of movement, all those things, but the role of faith, the role of spirituality. I wonder, first of all, maybe a little bit of how you became interested in this and what can we learn?
Absolutely. So first of all, yeah, I agree. I'm really just honored to be here with this panel, and I'm learning, laughing, and really just enjoying being here with everyone. My journey kind of to this space, it really began as a kid. I mean, I grew up like, you know, a lot of people that I know, you know, come from low-income background. So a lot of the people that are in the communities that we want to reach now are ones like I grew up in. And despite, nursing school and, having a really extensive background in healthcare, it really wasn't until Alzheimer's hit home that I started to try and learn more about this amazing brain that we have, and how we, yes, definitely should work to take better care of it. And so in that kind of evolution, in that learning process, I came to work with the Balm and Gilead, where I am the deputy director. And 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now, our CEO, she's the epitome of little ideas. And we wanted to create a center that really could focus on all the aspects of brain health, and have it focused on what do we need African Americans to do, but it's all pinned under this umbrella of faith and spirituality. We know that, we listen and perk up when our bishops and our pastors speak, but we also know that during challenging times, during hard times, we lean on that. Sometimes that's the only thing we may have to lean on, is our faith, and the things that we, the higher powers that we believe in. And so we wanted to harness that in a way and connect messaging to it. I really loved what you just said, Dr. Ramsey, and that definition of what a healthy brain looks like, because it is about connection. It is about, I think, demystifying, destigmatizing mental health, stigmatizing even Alzheimer's and dementia, and just really those of us that are caregivers, what we experience in this space. And people, it's the whoa, 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 and the woo, woo, woo. And yes, it's hard and it's challenging, but we don't want a pity party around it. We really, again, we want to connect with people. And if we want to laugh, we want to laugh. If we want to cry, we want to cry. And we want to learn from each other about how we are getting through this journey as caregivers. And so our center is focused on that, but we also reach out to healthcare providers. We work with academic institutions, because the same audience we're speaking to, they are the ones who have high rates of obesity, and they are the face of high blood pressure and hypertension, and you name it, they've got it, sometimes in multiple ways. And so, for us, it's saying, hey, look, we know you have all these things, but as we're talking about today, we can do something. We're not powerless. We don't have to just live with, this fear of getting dementia later on. We don't have to live with this fear of just being unhealthy, and learning being our authentic selves and everything that comes with that, and the beauty and all of that, and really just trying to connect and educate people as best we can.
That's terrific. Thank you. And we will come back to that point as well. I'm going to go around because I want to hear from everybody, and then I'm going to sort of hopefully have this discussion. But Dr. Fenn, is it the Brain Health Kitchen? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
I just love that idea, the Brain Health Kitchen. I'm wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about your background, and also, these tangibles. You have the Brain Health Kitchen. I want to know what's inside of it. What are you cooking?
I'm cooking a lot of things that we'll be talking about. Well, my path is a little bit different. And first of all, thank you, HFC, for having me. And, many of the people on the screen here are my mentors in the brain food world. So it's nice to see you all. But about 15 years ago, I was practicing as an obstetrician gynecologist with a focus on menopause. And every day I would have a patient come in and say, Annie, I think I'm getting early Alzheimer's. And of all the menopausal symptoms my patients were bothered by, it was cognitive changes that bothered them the most. And I started to notice that my patients who had less of these cognitive symptoms actually were following a more healthy dietary pattern. So fast forward a bunch of years, I was taking a break from medicine, and I went to culinary school, and I came back and was teaching as a culinary instructor in my community, basically just trying to help people eat better. I had realized that a lot of the diseases that I had been trained to treat were actually could be avoided if people would just change their lifestyle. So I was doing this, and as Pamela put it, Alzheimer's struck home. So this was in 2015, and my mother was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, which is the earliest stage of Alzheimer's. And I dove into the literature. The Mind Diet had just come out. I put together a meal plan for my mother based on these guidelines for my brother, who moved in with her 6 years ago and is still her primary caregiver. And it was then that I came up with the idea that I should use my medical background, my culinary training, and basically my passion for sharing food to help people eat better to prevent Alzheimer's, because the data really does support that certain foods are neuroprotective. And if we just get the word out about that, then we can fend off a lot of the age-related cognitive decline. So in 2015, I started the cooking school, Brain Health Kitchen. And I've been traveling all over the world ever since, teaching people how to eat better and cook with these neuroprotective foods.
Is there, you know, I think the adage you often hear is what is good for the heart is good for the brain. Are there specific things that, you know, I always am reluctant to use the term superfoods because I think that conjures up sort of these magical cures or whatever, but are there specific foods to the brain? Lauren in her opening was just mentioning berries, which I've heard a lot about as well. What have you found?
Absolutely. So I draw on all of the data that's basically built on the many years of studies we have on the Mediterranean diet. And when the MIND diet came out from Rush University in 2015, they described 10 brain healthy food groups. And they chose these food groups because they individually had studies to back them up, that they could protect memory or slow down cognitive decline in some other way. And so every single food group in the MIND diet is a spin-off of Mediterranean foods that are specifically brain healthy. So berries is really the only fruit in the MIND diet guidelines. So when I teach in my cooking school, I teach a lot from these 10 brain healthy food groups. I found it a very teachable way to show people the best ways to eat. The top 4 brain healthy food groups from the MIND diet group include berries, leafy greens, vegetables, whole grains, and olive oil. And these are foods that I call them everyday foods. These are foods we should be eating every day. And every time we choose to eat one of these brain healthy foods over something that's not so brain healthy, because there's a list of those too, then we are reducing our risk of Alzheimer's every single time we make a choice.
And again, this is a topic we'll come back to, but just quickly, how hard is it to arrive at some of these conclusions about diet and something that is brain healthy? Is this more mechanistic, like this is a food that has a certain physiological sort of impact on the body, or is it following people who eat a certain way and seeing what their cognitive health is like over time? How are some of these conclusions drawn?
Well, there's lots of different layers of the scientific data. You know, we do look at epidemiological studies, looking at what do people eat that actually do well, they live long and dementia free, such as the people that live in blue zones. You know, people are living to be 100 or more in the 5 blue zones around the world, and they don't have dementia either. So we like to look at populations of people, what they eat. We also like to look at basic science data that starts with animal studies and then gets applied to groups of people, such as in the nurses' health study, they looked at berries and how many servings of berries did these women eat over, 16, 20 years? And then how do they perform on memory testing? So we've had very specific data that points to these foods as being neuroprotective.
I think this is so important because, there's lots of things. I guess people often say, what is it? Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, but there is data behind some of these things. And I think it's always important to share because it's that much more substantive. I know, Alexandra, welcome. I know you are a big proponent of data as well. Judging, I now have a monitor, by the way, judging by the background behind you, which is complicated and looks really impressive. I got to ask about that. But one of the things I think that doesn't get talked about enough, whether it's in the middle of a pandemic or dealing with, the dementia, the population of people with dementia is unpaid caregiving. And it's really remarkable to me. I did work on this book that Lauren mentioned called Keep Sharp. And as I was interviewing people around the country for this, it always came up, this idea that there is so much caregiving that goes on. It's challenging, it's stressful, it's unpaid. What have you learned? What has the data shown you?
Okay, first of all, I'm got to be a super dork, and I so fangirl over you. And I love that your other books, by the way, were Cheating Death and Chasing Life, and that I know you're starting Life Itself. I'm so excited. And you'll see right over my head, it says Health is Life.
There you go.
Couldn't agree with you more on that concept. And I also, your dedication, which is so important for all of us, always take the time to be completely present, because it is perhaps the best and most joyous way to keep your mind sharp and your life bright. And that is so important for caregivers. So any unpaid caregiver listening, and we know the data shows about 2/3 of you right now are in an unpaid caregiver situation. So I'm gonna talk about the impact of COVID on mental health. And I believe in being positive too. I'm an insanely positive person. I'm gonna start with some data that's hard, because I think when we're asking people to make investments in supporting unpaid caregivers, we gotta talk about this reality and acknowledge the reality. And I find often when we share this data, it helps people who are struggling in this role feel less alone. And we know one of the most important lines of treatment is that somebody feels less alone in their reality. So before COVID, caregiving was already hurting us. So we know that if you were a caregiver, you had twice the risk of depression and twice the rate of coming down with a chronic condition, a full 26% level of poorer health. And we saw that there was a lot of high flyers. So people, caregivers, because they don't have time to go to see the doctor, to go see you on a preventive basis, they were actually going after the fact in an urgent care basis. But we published some data with the CDC that looked at the impact of COVID on mental health. And Dr. Drew, I love this quote you just said, mental health means brain health. And so I want to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID on mental health. So specifically, 56% of unpaid caregivers have clinically significant anxiety or depression. And how do you cope if you're anxious or depressed? I will admit, this is something I absolutely sometimes do. Substance use. And unpaid caregivers are increasing their rate of substance use by 5 times the rate. Wow. And the ultimate manifestation of mental health not going well for you is suicidal ideation. And a full 1 in 3 unpaid caregivers in the month of June, when we did our survey before it was published by the CDC, 1 in 3 unpaid caregivers had suicidal ideation. And that was in June. So really important call to action. If you know an unpaid caregiver, you got to be loving on them all the time. So what do, right? Data is important, but how do you translate that data to action and impact? So I'm obsessed with your book again. So we look at this through the lens of what we call caregiver intensity. And what drives intensity is really similar to what drives brain health. So I am like devouring your book and getting smarter and smarter. And you make the point that healthcare has been reactive, right? That we are reactive, and that brain health requires being proactive. And that is 100% true for caregiving. So caregiving intensity, which is the unit, the metric that we use for measuring impact, can be mitigated if we're proactive about it. And there are things that you can do more of, and we call these buffers, and they create resiliency. Your story about the community in the Netherlands, and you focus on what residents can do versus not do. This is true with caregivers as well. So I just want to share one most important buffer for caregivers is feeling connection. And Pamela, everyone's talked about this in some way already. And so for a caregiver, if you feel supported, even by one person, 40% reduction in stress, in depression, 30% reduction in anxiety. And so the most important thing any of us can do is we need to have our red phone, right? So if you're an unpaid caregiver, figure out the person that you can call no matter what, and they're going to love on you and be there for you. And then there's this other thing, we learned it from Susanna Fox, called ring theory, which is really important for unpaid caregivers. And the data specifically on ring theory is to give Susan Silk. And the notion of ring theory, and all of us need to do this, is you're a caregiver for someone. That person you're caring for is in the center. Your job as the unpaid caregiver is to pour love in, no matter what, judgment-free, just love on them. But then that's really stressful. So you need to dump the crap out. So you need an outer ring. That's your red phone, right? We would call that your archangel. But then that outer person, they got to pour love on you, but then that's stressful. So they need to, dump some crap out. So I think it's really important for all of us, find your red phone, figure out how that is, understand where you are in that ring, be pouring love in, and have someone you can dump the harder bits out to. And sleep.
Sleep. I really love that. I think anybody who's hearing what you're saying probably immediately contextualizes this in their own life in some way, because I think there's a lot of universal lessons in that. Doctors Sherzai, and I feel like you guys will speak in unison, but how do you talked about the importance of thinking about this from a policy perspective, having I'm sure the data that Alexandra is talking about is really important if you're trying to make policy-based recommendations. How do you collect evidence around this? I think we can all agree on the things that we're saying here, and probably have our own anecdotal sort of experience with these things ourselves, our families, whatever. But how do you provide the data?
So the research is extremely important. If there's no data, there's no direction, there's no policy. So we have to have data. But where I think we're missing the point is everybody thinks that the only data that means anything is randomized clinical trials. And it's not. You can't do a lot of studies with RCTs. And RCTs that are 6 months duration or even a year duration mean nothing when it comes to cognition. I can smile at somebody for 6 months and no, actually, let me reverse that. If she smiles at somebody, they're going to get better. If I smile, they'll get worse. But 6 month RCTs mean nothing. So we have to look at the whole breadth. I mean, we just did 2 reviews, massive reviews on omega-3 and the developing brain and omega-3 and the aging brain. Even that those reviews in their own context is not enough. So you have to look at the whole breadth. And when you look at the whole breadth of data, repeatedly, we know what works. We talk about nutrition, 53% reduction in one study, but if you look at the whole spectrum, it comes around 40 to 50% reduction of dementias, specifically Alzheimer's and vascular dementia, especially vascular dementia. When you look at exercise from the Harvard study, 45% reduction from a brisk walk. I mean, that's empowering. You don't have to do the marathon. I haven't done a marathon yet, and that reduces the risk. Now, here's the thing. The way you collect data, the arbitrary way we used to collect data was a survey that was created in white men in Boston, applied to 70-year-old Hispanic women in San Bernardino. That means nothing. You have to go to the communities. You have to connect to the communities. You have to even create the surveys. My PhD thesis was on this, which is CBPR, community-based participatory research, where you involve the community even in the data collection. And then you have a meaningful data that's not only collected from the data, but then can be applied back on the community, which means what? Research has to move. Before I move to the next statement, we are very pro-molecular research. I was at experimental therapeutics branch at NIH. It doesn't get any more wonky than that. It's important. Columbia University, important. But from 100%, we should go to 20%, and 80% should be prevention research, data capture, not in the lab with white coats, but with t-shirts in the community. And that's where the data means something. That's where the applications mean something. That's why what we do in Beach Cities, which is the largest brain health initiative and research project, is literally conversations with individuals. And after about a few months, the individuals who are in the research become researchers in a way. I think that's where the policy and evolution of research has to go, and it will be most effective. Beautifully stated with the churches and the faith-based communities. When we looked at the different communities, the African-American community, if you approached that population in the clinic, it means nothing. Actually, for me, it means nothing. If you go into the churches, into the hair salons, into the community, literally 200% greater connection, both as far as what the data means and as far as application of the data.
Absolutely.
How much of NIH funding? I was at an NIA and INDS. How much of the funding is in that direction? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So that's where the shift has to happen. And that's where our passion is.
I want to read some of these comments that are coming in as well. This is from Laurel Ackerson to all the panelists and to Alexandra Drane, everyone mentioning sleep. Such a challenge, she writes, for caregivers, possibly the biggest challenge. Some of us are not able to keep a sleepy health regimen, it sounds like, simply based on the caregiver's schedule as a result of the aging person and their own poor sleep schedules, thus interrupting the caregiver quality sleep. I think this is what the point is they're making. It's important. I think Laurel recognizes the importance of that, Alexandra, but it's just challenging, and you get into this unavoidable cycle of lack of sleep and other challenges for the caregiver. I mean, Alexandra, it's true, right? I mean, we know oftentimes what to do, but to actually be able to do it, to incorporate it into your life, is also a big challenge.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most important things to do for an unpaid caregiver is forgive yourself. And, it's okay that you're just not always going to be able to sleep. I think another thing is accept help. And we talk about the things that you're talking about that are protective. We think of as respite in the caregiver space. If you tell an unpaid caregiver you need some respite, they want to stab you because they're like, yeah, I'd love some respite. That's a great idea. Look at my life and how am I possibly going to do that? And one of the points that you make in your book, we say all the time, which is sometimes respite is just 5 minutes. What if you could give yourself 5 minutes to just chillax, right? Just go and scream in a corner, whatever you need to do, even if it's just 5 minutes. Now, ideally, is there someone in your community who's been saying to you over and over again, how can I help? Right? First of all, to anybody supporting a caregiver, do not ask how I can help. How can I help? Just help. Just put your body there. But if someone is asking you that question, see if someone will come to a sleepover, right? And say, can you just come? My mom's a wanderer. Can you just come sleep over tonight? I would just like one night of unfettered sleep. So I think allow people to care for you where sleep is concerned. If it's physically possible, I know often it's not, but if it is physically possible, ask a bestie to come to a sleepover and give yourself one good night of sleep. And otherwise, 5-minute cat naps where you can.
Again, such great advice. I'm living during this COVID time with 3 teen girls. These are my daughters. And I mean, I guess I'm not trying to minimize caregiver. I'm sort of a caregiver, but it's funny, just do stuff, right? As opposed to having the discussion around it sometimes makes all the difference. You know, it makes a big difference in terms of how they perceive what I'm trying to do and all of that. And you know, Dr. Ramsey, we understand the value of sleep. Again, just building on this, because it keeps coming up in all these discussions about some of the best things you can do for your brain. And again, we know this, but what is it about sleep that you've learned, Dr. Ramsey, that is so beneficial when it comes to your brain and your mind overall?
I think about sleep as the wash and rinse cycle of the brain. And I guess I also want to tell everyone listening, I'm also a caregiver. Both my parents are in their 80s and are putting up a good fight, but struggling. And so I just wanted to acknowledge Alexandra's comment. I think forgiving yourself is really important. I've been in emotional states, angry, frustrated, not patient. And I've had to forgive myself in some ways to kind of, I guess, look in the mirror the next day and just decide I'm going to do a better job taking care of them. And so I just think that's a huge part. In terms of sleep, what happens, sleep is really one of those vital signs in mental health that, I mean, seeing patients every day, when you see, I saw a guy yesterday that hadn't slept, college student at all. We just rescheduled because there's just not an accurate signal. Without sleep, it's nearly impossible to keep good reality testing in terms of a sense of balancing your emotions, a sense of understanding where they're coming from. Certainly, I think I'm most depressed after I haven't slept. It's one of those almost, for me, universal things where I'll be pretty in a dark spot and just go to bed. And it's kind of like a miracle sometimes. I think that's where so many caregivers commenting are talking about the difficulty sleeping. And I think for me, one one sort of tip is getting away from, I started monitoring my sleep, actually the middle of last year when I was maybe struggling a bit. And I noticed, but getting 8 hours of sleep is probably nearly impossible for most Americans. To get 8 hours of sleep, you need to go to bed at about 9. Especially if you're a parent where you start waking up at 6 a.m. no matter what, right? Once you're a parent, it's like you just can't sleep past there. We're an adult probably. And then looking for the things that disturb your
We're
sleep.
like all crying with laughter right now that you just said that. Like,
Right. Well, I just think it's good for us to be honest. As I've been monitoring my sleep for a month, I think there's only a couple times where I've had a solid 8 hours. That said, the more you monitor things, the more you can manage in them. And that's where I think there's so many tools at our disposal now where we can understand how exercise influences sleep. Growing up on a farm, you never had a problem sleeping because you woke up with the sunrise, you worked all day, and you got into bed real tired. That's always kind of stayed with me. And I guess additionally, Sanjay, something I see and the other physicians see is there's a lot of use of sleep medications. Sometimes those are great, but a lot of times those are a Band-Aid. And I just want to point out, sometimes we need Band-Aids. If you haven't had a good night's sleep and you need a little melatonin or a little sleepy time tea, or maybe something stronger to get a good night's sleep, what's important is sleep. And I think people having a toolbox around how to take care of their sleep, how to promote sleep hygiene, and then a good, what I call launch sequence. Like, don't get in bed and close your eyes. Like, that's not how you fall asleep. I mean, it is, but you want to set yourself up, dim your lights, kind of center down, read something that's not a screen, do some deep breathing, maybe make a gratitude list. Those are all ways you can promote better sleep.
You know, I think it's so important when we talk about healthy behaviors, Dr. Ramsey. You know, we oftentimes talk about in the context of prevention, do these things and it'll help prevent disease later on. But the idea that it feels good now, just like you said, I think is so critically important. It closes the loop for people in terms of inspiring good behaviors. I'm the same way. I feel fantastic when I've had a good night's sleep, and it's so rare. I mean, I've been so head down in COVID for the last year. I mean, waking up super early, talking to people on the other side of the world, going to bed late. I am not a good patient right now, but I do recognize exactly what you're saying, the value of the sleep, and I feel fantastic. You know, one of the other things, Pamela Price, that comes up a lot, and you alluded to this, is, you know, the connection is protection. And spirituality, faith-based organizations, when you talk about the impact of being a member of one of these organizations or being involved, it's good for your brain, good for your mind. But why is it specifically? Is it that you're part of something larger than yourself? Is it that you are connecting with people in a different way? Maybe there's not a direct answer, but I'm just wondering your thoughts.
So yeah, and I think it's a combination of those things. I think it's a little bit of what Alexandra said in terms of a person at your church is your red phone. We often talk a lot about Sister Mary's. Sister Mary is just that one lady in the church. She knows everybody. She's been there since the church began. She'll be there when the church is no longer there. And so knowing that they become such a really great and trusted, I think a really key word is trusted. Our churches, our congregations, the people in them are trusted. And in a time, especially like what we've been experiencing with COVID-19, we've got to lean on those kind of trusted resources even more. And they become not just support centers for our mental health and well-being, they become support centers just for, like Dr. Sherzai was saying, of where we get resources, where we get information, but also of how we connect. I really love the idea of individuals realizing, as you said, you can touch more people on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday Bible study than you can in terms of waiting for them to come to a clinic, waiting for them to actually talk to their healthcare provider, if they have one. Getting this community to see a Dr. Ramsey, a psychologist, not highly likely. But having a Dr. Ramsey come and sit and talk with one of the deacons, and the deacon say, hey, look, Dr. Ramsey is going to help us get our brains healthy. Dr. Ramsey is going to help us talk about how we can rest better, sleep better. They become trusted partners that tear down a lot of the barriers, whether that's even with food and nutrition. Our churches have community gardens. So there are places where you can get those berries and those green leafy vegetables that you can't get in your neighborhood because you live in a food desert. So for us, that connectedness is very much a holistic connectedness, but it also does give us that sense of whether it's Allah, Buddha, you know, and the Baba Gila, we are not a specific faith or denomination. So whatever form Jesus, God, or whoever comes in, we're prepared to, you know, I think, again, just connect with people to say that's great and help them identify how they can use that, how they can help, whether it's changing of the mindset, whether it's changing of saying, hey, I really want to do better about eating. I really want to do better about trying to manage my rest sleep cycles. And I want to be able to give myself permission to get help. As a caregiver, I think it's just extremely hard to give ourselves permission, to give ourselves the grace that we need. We're spreading it out to everyone else, and we often just don't give ourselves that same level of grace to say, hey, look, you know, I screwed that up royally. You know, tomorrow is a new day, and I'll try to be better. And our faith, for most of us, allows us to do that because it's about forgiveness. It's about love. It's about healing. It's about faith is about hope. I don't care, you know, kind of where it is. It's all about hope, that there's something else beyond this life. It's something else beyond this moment, beyond this time. And that's powerful, especially just where we are in the world right now, and where we are again on these, you know, journeys as caregivers. That's powerful. I've cried. I've had, you know, I found my little 15 minutes to just sit in the bathroom with no kids knocking at the door and just said, hey, what, you know, and just allow myself to connect to whatever's happening in that moment. And we encourage, you know, folks to really seek ways to do that.
That's beautiful. I feel better just listening to you a little bit. I want to finish in a second here with Dr. Fenn, but Pamela, I'm curious, during this COVID time, we're all sitting here talking on this Zoom call. I actually find it's pretty good. I mean, I wish I was there with you in person, but it's not bad. But with regard to some of the things you're talking about, how difficult has it been during this time when we're mostly staying at home and doing things over the computer? Are people still able to make these connections that you're talking about?
They have, but it's in a different way. In addition to our work with our Brain Health Center, we also were doing diabetes prevention programs, and they were literally housed inside of churches. And so our lifestyle coaches, our managers, our coordinators, when COVID came, they were crushed, because one of the reasons that our participants reported that they were successful in dropping their weight and getting more active is because they came to this church and connected with the group that they were working with on this year-long lifestyle change program. So we were very fearful that once we had to make adjustments, that people would feel disconnected. But what we realized is that because we had tapped into people from those communities, our participants they still felt comfortable. And once we had technology gaps and hurdles, we had to teach a lot of Zoom, a lot of click here, a lot of tutorials. But we realized that because we built this out of the, as long as we provided those Zooms, and I've hopped in on several of the classes, they are laughing, they are enjoying. When George Floyd happened, we actually had a group that in that moment, that story broke. And it was powerful what that group discussed, which was totally off key from diabetes. But I think it's the message. And I think whether, as much as we would love to touch and hug and feel, I think seeing faces, seeing people nod, seeing people smile, clap, through our screens was still a way that we could get connected. Our pastors are doing virtual Sunday. A year later, they're Zoom pros. And so we're going to continue actually to offer certain things virtually, even when we can return to in-person. But so I think it's all about, it's your message, the message and the messenger. And if you can get those two things right, you can connect, across airwaves, Zoom, you name it.
Okay, that's great. It's reassuring. I mean, I do think we're gonna come out of this time at some point, this COVID time, but I think these connections are still important, obviously, even as we're still living this life. Dr. Fenn, let me just finish with you. We're already sort of a little bit out of time, but what you've been on this journey. You're a doctor. You've got this beautiful looking kitchen behind you. I'm seeing in the monitor. What people want to know, a tangible. You talked about some of the specific foods, but what about your life? How do you live your life differently now than maybe when you were grinding away during residency and things like that to do things for your brain?
Well, I'm certainly recovering from all the sleep deprivation I went through from delivering all those babies back in the day. And it's not easy, but sleep, as we've talked about, is paramount. The other thing that I want you to know, caregivers, that's so important is I want you to be able to cook healthy food. I want to make it easy for you. So what the bulk of my work now is to provide resources so that you can put together brain healthy meals, because I know you don't have a lot of time to cook, and you probably don't have a lot of time.
Your lives are extraordinary, and you are busy, and your plates are full, and we want to do what we can to make your journey just a little bit easier. And I hope that you found today's event helpful and that you learned some stuff. Please take the survey after this. Again, the first 50 people will get a little care package with items to help you get started on your brain health journey. Stay connected to each other, join a support group, join an HFC virtual support group, reach out to your local resources. You've learned so much. Stay connected to us. Thank you so much for attending. Happy Caregivers Day. Please take a moment to thank yourselves for doing this. Again, you're in extraordinary positions and doing extraordinary work. And I say thank you. Everyone at HFC says thank you. And real quick, thank you to everyone at HFC who made this event possible. It was really amazing. Again, thank you so much. we'll see you on social media and email and maybe on Zoom again in the future. Who knows?
Thank you, everyone. It was really nice to meet you all, and Ayesha and Dean and Pamela. I'm not sure.
We'll connect.
Likewise, yeah, I think we're all connected via email. It was really lovely.
You're ready, Pamela.
This is a dance party.
I know.
Bye, guys.